Okay.
Okay, so to get us started, can you share with us how you got started in PTA?
Well, and that was quite a long time ago because my children are all grown, but I do remember the first time I heard about PTA was when we went to visit my stepdaughter Michelle's school. They were having a fundraiser, a carnival, and so that was the first time that I actually knew PTA was part of that culture there within our schools. The time that I got involved and actually joined PTA, and this is really important for all of you that are listening, is whenever my oldest son was in kindergarten. So we were new in Albuquerque. We had just moved to a new town and we went to school every day, Ashley and I did, to pick up Jason from school. Well, then you meet individuals that were there. And the ladies that I got to really enjoy and had conversations with, they asked me to join. So I always say it's really important, you have to ask, even in this digital age where we can join on a platform, the relationships you make are those that really you reach out and you ask and touch someone. And they asked me not only to join, but to be treasurer of their PTA. So that was my very first involvement at Dennis Chavez Elementary School in Albuquerque, New Mexico. PTA was very strong and very vibrant. When we had school meetings, and this school probably had about 1,100 students. Again, it was an elementary K through sixth grade. We would have a meeting in the gym. There would be people standing outside of the gym that couldn't find a place to sit down. So people were very involved, very much a part of our PTA, very much felt the need of being community and involvement at their schools. So this is a time when our membership was in full bloom and every parent really felt it was necessary to be a part of PTA and to really embrace what PTA had to bring forward, not only in, what we hear about that some think that we're fundraising organizations, but also what we do and how we advocate for their children at that school, but within the community and the state and nation. The highlight, again, it was COVID. So I don't know that you would call that a highlight. If you're talking about highlight that I thought was really important, that really I look back and thought we made a huge difference, was family engagement, notes from the backpack. Again, mental health initiative was very, very important to me and to my family and our history. I came from a family that had lots of mental health history. So it was important for me to see that initiative go forward, and the pandemic really brought it even more to the forefront, where everyone saw the need for mental health, even in their own lives and within their own families, where you could have those conversations, where in the past you never really talked about it. So to me, that was one of the highlights.
Can you share a little bit of what the country was like during your term?
Well, it quickly became a country that was shut down from a pandemic here. We went from a very vibrant society, very busy, very involved, everybody doing everything, going everywhere, doing whatever, and all of a sudden we were shut down. I had just come into office in June, and then by March we had our legislative conference, and that's when the country became shut down. And you quickly saw our nation almost, it's like God said, enough. Y'all are too busy and I need y'all to just take a breath, right? So you saw empty streets, businesses that were shut down and restaurants were shut down. So everyone had to really stay at home and become more comfortable in their own homes, in their own family, and how to work from home. Our whole lives changed during my presidency. So it was a very, very different time. For our nation and for our association. None of us knew how to really start in this virtual world, but we quickly turned and made that pivot that made it possible for us to continue as an association with our volunteers and with our children. It was really, I think our association played a huge part during this pandemic, making sure that our schools were able to reopen safely for all of our children in this nation.
Leslie, during your term, was there an advocacy sort of initiative or moment that really stands out to you that you really remember?
I remember testifying before Congress on, of course, we fought very hard for gun control and gun violence happening in our schools. And it was quickly after I became president that it actually happened within my own town. And that a very close friend of mine, one of her twins was shot during this spree. And she's an associate pastor at a church that I go to and my children go to. And she handled it so well. And she was right there and agreed to allow me to testify about her situation. And it was important to me for those individuals that were there, the congressmen and women that were there, to understand how it impacts all of us, no matter if it happens in your hometown or if it happens in the town next door. We are a nation that is in crisis about how to really work towards better gun control laws without everybody thinking we're going to take away their Second Amendment rights. That's not who we are. We're just wanting to make sure that our schools and our communities are safe. And that's who we are. And that's what we were founded upon. The other thing that I just popped in my mind about advocacy was that our first legislative conference as I was president was the last time. We immediately shut down after that point. We had the First Lady there. It was a great conference. It was right after I lost my grandson, Noah. Such warm individuals that shared with me their thoughts and prayers for our family, but also for those that had loss of their own. And that's what this community is about those relationships. But it was also nice to see in the time of pandemic, once again, how we figured out as an association to bring our legislative agenda before Congress, and that was virtually. And what we found out was that we were able to bring more people than ever to be a part of talking to their congressmen and women, advocating for those issues that we feel are very important for our children, and bringing their personal stories, which ring true to those congressmen more than me talking to them about as national president, but as you, boots on the ground in their communities, making that difference. And so I remember that really nice, wonderful surprise to see how everybody really fought hard during this time of pandemic for their children more than ever before. They fought really hard for those issues that we really wanted to see go forward. What I really remember most are the relationships that were made, the partnerships that were made, the really deep understanding that our association really is what I thought it was. And y'all are gonna have to pause this because I'm not gonna be crying on my videos, so y'all are just gonna have to let that one go. But anyway, so, but knowing that the legacy that our nation, that our association has, right, about the supreme importance of the child, it became even more important during this time of COVID. And we saw where people came to us as an association, not to an individual school, not to individuals that were not a part of our association. And I granted that there are other associations that became important as well, but I think ours stood out the most in that public education world where everyone was trying to find out the right answers. And my belief in this association, that we are the world's largest child advocacy association, is true. When people want to see change, they come to PTA. They don't go to any other organization because they know no one has the arms or the strength to make change happen. Within our association, we do. Granted, a lot of times it's whether or not we want to see it or not, but we have that ability. And we have such a relationship within our own members, within our own leaders, within our own states, and here at National, that we made a huge difference, I think, in the way that our schools came together, the way that our teacher, NEA, AFT, all of us came together, Learning First Alliance, Child Mind Institute. There were so many partnerships that happened, and so many that I didn't mention, and please don't think that I didn't appreciate everything that you did. But there were so many things that happened because they saw the importance of this association and the legacy it had before we got into this pandemic. Never undervalue who you are, because we as leaders of this association, this wonderful millions of member strong association, you have so much power at your hands to do the right thing. And for me, that was the most memorable part.
Every president has their story, those moments that touched your heart. Can you share your story?
There were a few. The very first, I want to say it was our first board meeting when we were still in person, which was very few. Our staff arranged for our board of directors to go to an elementary school in Virginia. And it was so nice to see our programs, our STEM program in action. There was such a diverse culture there. I think I've probably heard over 5 different languages at that school. And yet every parent that I talked to, whether they were English speaking or not, their one answer was, why did you join PTA? And it was for their child. And so that really struck home, and seeing those children love the program that we were funding, that we had sponsors for, really, really warmed my heart to see that in action. And, always there's reflections event. We had one live one before, I think we did before, one before we went into COVID. I just love this event because the children are the primary focus, their talents, and there's so much talent that we are able to recognize, and to see them actually blossom right there in front of me was amazing. And I'm tall. For most of you that don't know, I'm about 6 foot tall. And there was a young lady that was receiving an award, and you could tell she was not comfortable with her height. And so I went and talked to her and her parents and told her how beautiful she was. And it was after that time that the parents came up to me. I didn't think this was going to be emotional, and said, thank you so much for caring about our children. She needed to hear from you that she was beautiful. And I think we do that. And I know all of you do on your state levels, your council levels, and your local level. You really speak to those children. It's all about you and the relationships you choose to make, or that you see that need to happen where you are right then and there with our children. Probably one that got me on this movement towards being president was a story that a council president came to me here about a young girl in Midland, which is about 15 minutes away from my home. She said, I had this incident happen in our elementary school, and I wanted to let you know the difference that PTA makes. And I said, okay, I'd love to hear about it. And she said, well, this young lady walked into the registrar's office, and she said, I want my mom to join PTA. And she said, okay, honey, let me just go over here and get our envelope, that type of thing. Let's fill this information out. Let's complete the form together. So the little girl, got her money. It was all in, small coins and very few dollar bills, but she had that amount there. I think it was like $7.50 or $10 at this school. And of course, she asked her name. She gave her name, and then she asked her address, and she didn't say anything. And so the registrar looked at her and said, honey, I need your address. And the little girl looked down at her feet, and she whispered, I don't have an address. And the registrar was, kind of looking at her like, well, what do you mean? I mean, you have a child that's wanting her mother to join PTA. And she's like, you mean you don't have an address? She goes, no, we live in my car. We live in our car. We don't have a home. And so I always try to bring home to our volunteers the difference that you make on your campuses every day touch more children than you ever know. And this little girl felt it was so important for her mother to be a part of an association where she saw volunteers every day smile and bring snacks, and brought such joy to her that she wanted her mother to be a part of that. So I hope that really speaks to you and your heart and your purpose of why PTA. Every day I hear people ask me, why PTA? Why did you decide this was the path on? And I got news for everybody. This was never what I thought my path would be at PTA, as being a national president. But there are times in your life where things happen where you have to make a choice to either make that difference or walk away and know you left something on a platter or a journey of your life. And for me, this was my journey. This was my leadership journey to go through this association that I loved so much, to not only work for the children of our nation, but I also love working with our leaders and really helping them embrace who they are and taking them on the journey of being more successful than they ever thought before. And I think that's the thing that I learned during the most of this pandemic. We had presidents who were so overwhelmed. They didn't know what to do or who to turn to. And they turned to us at National because we chose to pivot quickly. We have such a strong and vibrant staff, and we have a great board of directors who knew we had to really turn the ship. We've always been termed as the Titanic. Well, this time we were like a sail ship. We turned that boat around and we made the differences that we needed to during this time. And I am so very proud to have been the president during this COVID.